You say entanglement, I say my dreaming, the space between everything.
Yes. Actually, these aren't resources, these are relatives.
Malgana people have been here for close to 25,000 years, and we've gone in and out on the peninsula.
Right. And I thought, here I am. Okay, I'm on the other side of the world. I'm right here in this area where red earth surrounds me.
My name is Professor Michael Weir, Professor of Practice at Murdoch University and also the founder of Tidal Moon.
Daniel Wildcat. I'm a Zoyaha member of the Creek Nation of Oklahoma and a professor at Haskell Indian Nations University right in the heart of the United States, Lawrence, Kansas, and delighted to be here.
So Dan, you're in Shark Bay.
Yes, I am.
Gathaagudu, which is two waters. It's the home of the Malgana people. Mm-hmm. What do you think so far?
Well, I tell you, I'm so impressed. You know, where I live, my wife and I, there's water, but it's rivers. It's mostly man-made lakes in the heartland of the United States. And but I've had the good fortune to travel a bit around the world, around our Mother Earth, and being on the water always just reminds me of, you know, how we're all connected. The water connects us all. Yeah. Water is life, right? And so being here has just been an absolute delight. I noticed when we came in, you know, to this part of the bay, I noticed the red earth and the red clay and the sand, and told my wife, I said, oh my God, we're home. Oklahoma, where my people reside today, the Zoyaha, the Yuchi people, that's a Comanche, an indigenous word that translates as red earth. And I thought, here I am. Okay, I'm on the other side of the world. I'm on this water that connects us all, and I'm right here in this area where red earth surrounds me. So I was explaining earlier, you know, that almost everywhere I've been on this planet, working with other peoples, I always have these moments where something just reminds me that although we're all come from different places, we have different cultures, we have different languages, we are all kin, you know, we're all children of this Mother Earth. And so it's just delighted to meet new kin. You know, I've got new kin relatives that I didn't know I had, you know, and now, Michael, it's just been a pleasure. Yeah.
I'm actually fascinated that you actually said Oklahoma means red earth. It's amazing because Shark Bay is well known from the deserts to meet the sea. So you got that red earth that goes all the way up. And as you can see behind us, we have the red hills. Then we have the blue turquoise pristine waters, then we have the white sands, and then we have our meadows of seagrass. Yeah. So it's a very contrasted colors.
Oh, it is. And it's like two different worlds coming together, this aquatic world and then a very dry, you know, kind of desert environment. But yet there's life here. It's so full of life. And so that makes me want to ask you sort of, what does this place really mean to you and to your people, you know?
So Malgana people have been here for close to 25,000 years and we've gone in and out on the peninsula. Right. But this country is sacred to us and it's called our dreaming. Our dreaming is everywhere. It's a space between everything. It's a space between me and you because not so long ago we did an acknowledgement and did a welcome to country for you. We told our old people that you're here, and while you're here on our lands, let the spirits look after you, and we're responsible for you. But you're a part of that dreaming. Yeah. And that dreaming is constant. It doesn't stop. It just goes forever. So whether it's between you and I, or me in the water, or me in the sand, it's everywhere. And it's that spiritual thing that you'll feel while you're here. And as you stay longer, Shark Bay will just it will just come into you. You'll feel it.
Yes, I do feel it. And I mean, I think that's the miraculous thing about, you know, maybe that's what kind of ties, you know, indigenous people together. We are of the earth. We honor the earth as our mother. We honor the land, the air, the water, the plants and animals around us. And like we often talk about at my native institution in the United States, really, it seems to me, we share a deeply kind of ecological kinship view of the world, that we don't see ourselves as separate from the balance of life, but actually, these aren't resources, these are relatives, and we have to figure out how to live well.
I'm sure in your culture as well, as once you start to kind of tap into that dreaming, you unlock that sixth sense.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Everyone's got those five senses, but then that sixth sense where you know where you are at all times, you know when you're safe, you know when Mother Earth tells you when you can eat, it presents stuff to you, and you know how the animals go. So it's really that cultural aspect of it that brings out that sixth sense.
And what I want to really ask you to talk a little bit about, because we talked about this last night when we first met, you know, we talked about, you know, dream time, the past, and we said, well, we're dreaming now. This is what we do, dreaming. And I really love that. It really resonated with me, because I think one of the things that non-native people think about us, Indigenous people, whether you're in Western Australia or North America or the Arctic Circle, it doesn't matter. But they tend to think of us as sort of frozen in the past. And I think what's interesting is what you're talking about is our cultures are alive. We're still making them. We're still living them. And because we're part of this world, we can't do we even if we chose to do something different, we'd still be in the flow, in the mix of all of this. And I think that's so powerful, because our cultures are far from dead. They're living.
How would you describe that in Native American terms, like a constant, a continuous culture that is just keep thriving?
Yeah. When I think of myself as a Zoyaha, my world is vastly different than the world that my great-grandparents and grandparents lived in. But it's still this world. It's still what's happened. It's changed. And so what I try to get people to understand is that our cultures, like everyone else on the planet, are alive, and I think living. And this is the important point, is we see ourselves, even in our cultural activities, not separated from the balance of creation, but it's that land, air, water, plants, animals, the sun, the stars at night, that are really keep instructing us on what we might do next, what we ought to consider next.
That's great. There's so many similarities.
Yeah, I think there are.
Especially with the concept of the time that we share while we're here. Like we're only here for a certain period of time.
Right.
And in our culture, you got to really enhance that and make sure it continues on to that next generation.
Yeah.
Last night we spoke about making sure we have a lot of empathy for the youth.
Yes.
And with your teaching and what you're doing and bringing it over here and interacting, I think it's going to have a great positive for a lot of generations. Right now I've got my daughter up here with us. And obviously she's a fan of yours, and she's going to do some bit of the teaching. But it shows in real time that, you know, even though there's a body of water between us, there's an ocean between us, that you can still do good work as an Indigenous person.
I think one of the things that's changing now is, I grew up in a time when our tribal leadership, we refer to ourselves as tribal nations in North America. That's the way generally we talk about our distinct peoples. But as these tribal nations, I think I grew up in a time when we were so focused on just trying to survive, to withstand all the pressures that colonialism had put on us, that we didn't look outward very much. We did not. We weren't very active in international kinds of meetings. We weren't present. We weren't there.
So was it more of like an inward view?
Very inward. I think very inward. I think you and I are living in a time where we can see people like your daughter, people like my son, my granddaughter, who are basically not afraid to look in that broader context and really saying, we need to be engaged in that broader world too. I think that's so positive.
It's funny you say that, because a few of the things that I'm doing in Australia, one of the things I wanted to do was recreate Australia's first trade, to show there was a history of commerce before colonization. But then as I've continued over the last 10 years, you get this global sense of reconciliation, where a lot of Indigenous nations around the world are trying to bring the past back into the new world and kind of reconcile all those bad things. But in Australia, we have things like Reconciliation Week, NAIDOC Week, and everything else. But when you step out to the wider world, there are other First Nations people trying to do it. So honestly, I think there's this whole sense of a global reconciliation about the worth that we have and the worth that we can bring into the future.
No, I think that's one of the major challenges we have. So whether you like it or not, we're entangled in often institutions, relationships, our ancestors had no part in creating, but we became entangled in those. I think the power, what gives me hope now, is working with a lot of young Indigenous scholars, activists, people who are trying to make changes, who are recognizing that, you know, hey, we should get involved in this web of relationships, but no longer be victims in that.
Yeah.
In other words, now we're at a point where we say, I think we can understand, we'll figure out that system, and we can use that system to actually improve the lives of our relatives, not just our human relatives. I think this is another thing that ties our work together. In the work I do at Haskell at the Rising Voices Changing Coast Convergence Science Hub, we take seriously the notion that we work in an eco-kinship organization.
Right.
That means that our work is not just about our human relatives, but everywhere we work, we've got to think about the health of the land, the air, the water, the plants, the animals. I think we share that too. And I think once you take that view, you don't have any choice but to break out of these very artificial notions of nation states, of political constructed geographies that our ancestors never recognized, nor do the fish in this ocean, the birds in the air. They don't worry about whether they've got the right papers to go across different areas. And I think that's a part of our traditions, and I think bringing that into discussions today is very valuable.
Well, it's funny you say that because obviously you've been out in the water with my cousin Moose and the crew.
Yeah.
And you've seen the seagrass.
Yeah, yes.
And the seagrass was heavily damaged because of a heat wave in 2011, 2012. And we had a lot of scientists here talking about how the damage has affected the biodiversity, the plants and animals. But as traditional custodians, we saw something completely different, which was that entanglement. The first thing is seagrass is always going to be here. It's just, as a custodian, you got to look after country. And we had to jump in and start restoring it. But restoring not for only seagrass, but for all those animals that rely on it.
Exactly.
It goes back to that entanglement.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, you say entanglement, I say my dreaming, the space between everything.
Yeah, space between.
And you got to make sure that space is always healthy. You got to make sure you look after that space. And then you bring people in to help you on that journey.
Yeah.
So we have this thing called cultural direction in Tidal Moon at Shark Bay.
Yeah.
But it's also a collaboration where we want to work with Western science and not exclude them. Do you have that the same over in?
Yeah. So this is really the inspiration of the Rising Voices Changing Coast Convergent Science Hub. It's unusual among the convergent science hubs because we're one of the, maybe a couple that includes Indigenous people. But as we've included them into our work, they are not research subjects. That we have asked the elders, the local knowledge holders, to join some of the best scientists in the world that we work with at Scripps Oceanic Institute, the National Center for Atmospheric Research. We said, let's bring our local knowledge holders together with these very modern scientific knowledge holders, and what we're going to get is more knowledge. And then we can figure out, where there are convergences, where there are divergences. Sometimes we disagree about certain things. That's all right, because disagreement leads to often better understanding. But what we've discovered is if you have patience and you talk long enough and you build the trust, that we're not talking anymore about convergence or divergence. We're talking about the emergence of a new kind of understanding.
Completely on the same pathway is what we're doing here in Shark Bay. So I have this concept of what I call a living library.
So
it's just constantly living. It will never die. As long as the people are there to keep feeling it, whether you be Indigenous knowledge or whether you be Western science, you add to that living library. The idea is once I'm gone, here's the pinnacle. Someone's going to take that and just keep emerging and go higher and higher because it's a life.
Yes, it is.
As long as there's people there to give it life, it will keep growing.
My dear friend and mentor, Vine Deloria Jr., one of the most important Indigenous thinkers in in North America in the 20th century. He said there's an axiom of our indigenous metaphysics, and he was speaking of North America, but as I've traveled around the world, it seems like it's something that many indigenous people share. He says, you want to understand indigenous people, understand this. We're surrounded by power.
Yeah.
Most of it's intangible. That's that dreaming we're engaged in. Power, but power always expresses itself in a place. And then that power and that place creates the people.
That's right.
The unique people of that unique expression of power and place. And that's what I've found everywhere. And that's why I've been so lucky in my life to be able to travel around the world, to meet indigenous people and begin to realize, wow, we really are kin, Michael.
We definitely are.
And it's just a blessing to be here and to make this relationship with Murdoch University. And we got a lot of good work ahead of us, brother.
Yeah, it's only a start. It's that connection bit. Once you start looking outward, after many years of looking inward, you see that everything starts to come together and the pieces fall into place.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, I'm very optimistic that in the next 10 to 15 years, you'll see this immersion of the next generation come.
I agree.
But it'll be on the leverage that we give them through our knowledge systems and through our collaborations.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I've argued in several of my different writings, I said, we know what's causing the physical climate change on this planet. Everyone knows it. And scientists actually have some pretty good ideas of what we might consider doing. But what we bring to that whole discussion is this worldview that says, you've got to remember that, if you think you're going to fix a problem, you've already taken a bad first step, because you can fix your car, you can fix your computer, you can fix, your oven. These guys' fancy cameras, they can get them fixed. But we're not talking about fixing. We're talking about healing.
That's right.
Relationships of life. And I think that's what your people bring, my people bring. And that's why I think, if we just keep investing in our young people and let them know you have a tremendous intellectual heritage of knowledge and wisdom to bring with you into this modern world, as I like to say, you can start exercising indigenuity, not indigenous thinking, but indigenous ingenuity or indigenuity. And that affirms the fact that, we're not relics of the past. Right. You and I are sitting right here, we're taking advantage of the best technology. But I think the way we understand it and value it might differ from the way a lot of people look at those things.
That innovation side is very critical in what we try to do as well, is because we have that direction and we're kind of leading it with the Western science following us, but that gives us the empowerment to stop if we see anything wrong. So generally what we've seen around, especially in the ocean conservation phase, is people will go on these projects, but no one will ever pull them back and say, hey, you might be doing something wrong. Where they just want to get to their goal. With Indigenous people leading, we can actually stop and pivot.
Right, exactly.
And we can actually go, the environment isn't actually reacting to it. No. And we know, we can feel it, we can sense it. And then we stop and we go, maybe we actually should stop, see what we can do this way, and go back or revert back to our culture and see what the best fix is.
Exactly. No, I love it. And I think that's why people like you and I are just so lucky to be where we are today, and, to be able to, hopefully be a part of some real positive changes that could happen for not just Indigenous peoples, but for all life on this planet, because I think we really
With that note, though, you've seen the Seagrass.
Yes, I
have. Tidal Moon, the company that I run, we have a 13-year Seagrass license or project. So over the next 13 years, we've got to invite you back, and you've got to bring more people in so you can see the great work we're doing in real time.
Well, I guarantee you this will happen. You're going to be coming, you're going to be bringing some of your people, your daughter. We'll have students coming here, and you know what's going to happen? We're all going to be that much wealthier. As my Zoyaha relatives like to say, we never thought of wealth in terms of who had the most resources. We thought a wealthy person is a person who has many good relatives. And you've made me much wealthier, Michael. Thank you.
Dan. It's a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, you bet.